Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to the Vanguard Show podcast, episode number 27, sponsored by the book From Old Guard to Vanguard, a second generation Panther, and the From Old Guard to Vanguard photo exhibit, which has pages on Facebook that people can check out. So I definitely want to thank our guest today, Brother Robert Lee Johnson. He's a writer, author, historian, really a literary icon in the city of Los Angeles, who lectures on local history at colleges, universities, museums. Mr. Johnson had membership as on the Historical History Council, rather, and a past chairman of the projects committee at the California African American Museum in Exposition Park, a place I know very well. He is a founding member of the Compton 125 Historical Society and has been recently featured, or I should say featured rather, in the documentaries The Streets of Compton and Fire on the Hill. Mr. Johnson is the author of Images of America, Compton, published by Arcadia Publishing. He was formerly a leading member of the Compton branch of the Black Panther Party and a founding member of CAPA, Coalition Against Police Abuse, in the 70s. And in the 80s, he was a plaintiff in the notorious spying scandal that involved the LAPD. And so I definitely want to talk about that. And one of my favorite books, Notable Southern Californians in Black History, written by Mr. Johnson. Please make sure you go out, check it out. I've had this for a couple years, and it is a dynamic book. And I want to bring forward Brother Johnson. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Malik. It's great to see you.
Did I get it all in?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Just about. I did do a shot on the for the BBC on Nipsey Hussle.
Okay.
Because there's some serious parallels between Nipsey Hussle and Bunchy Carter.
Okay, right on.
And so when you see now that that the police were actually investigating him as he was trying to reach out to the police, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, over these police murders, which, you know, we can talk about because unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons why I work in history.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what's happened before you, you will take actions that you think are productive, but could actually be counterproductive because you don't know who's involved and what the history of those actions are.
Right.
Right. I'll use Nipsey Hussle as an example.
Mm-hmm.
He was reaching out to the LAPD to talk to them from a community perspective about police murders, these issues. People are concerned in the community.
Right.
But what he didn't realize was, it's what you're dealing with.
Right. Because
they were actually investigating him and his business. Because whenever they see Black people moving in unity, mm-hmm. that is a threat to the status quo.
Right.
And when we talk about the status quo, we have to understand what that actually means. That means us on the bottom and them on top.
Right.
So he became a threat. His international connections and his street connections, mm-hmm. What Bunchy did, and of course, we talk about the 1965 rebellion that really radicalized a whole generation, especially here in Los Angeles.
Right.
Nipsey Hussle, I mean, imagine this, if he was able to radicalize his peers, if they would have followed along with his thinking, you see what I'm saying, as that was developing, because his thinking was evolving.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
He's trying Black capitalism. He's trying, but one of the major thing is he realized that we had some serious issues in our community,
right?
And he wanted to work those out. He just didn't understand the history of our struggle, right. And so he actually stepped into a similar trap. I mean, imagine this: mm-hmm. If we had never heard of the church committee. Mm. We would have always thought that the murder of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins was just, pardon my expression, some bullshit nigga shit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's what they do.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You know, it was a contest between two Black nationalist organizations. They would have left it at that.
Right.
Just as we're looking at Nipsey Hussle and this, some kind of inner gang rivalry. But
right.
now all of a sudden we get a news report, oh, LAPD was involved in investigating him and you know, basically doing the same thing that they were doing to him that they were doing to us.
Right. That's right.
So that's something that, you know, Nipsey Hussle is something that we have to look at, but it's a cautionary tale to the youth today who want to take on the responsibilities of Black leadership in our community.
Right.
Whose shoulders are you standing on?
Right. That's right.
Who struggles? You know, I'll give you one more example. Ice-T.
Yeah.
Okay. He tried to leap over everybody. I'm going to go talk to Trump.
I remember that.
Without understanding all these people who are already working on this issue.
Right.
He leaps over everybody and then wonders why he got slapped down.
That's right. Great point. That's right. Yeah.
You know, if we don't understand the struggle and the history in our community, okay, you know, Dr. Huey Newton would say intercommunalism, because all of our communities, you know, even though you might be in Atlanta, somebody else might be in New York, what happens in Atlanta affects what happens in Los Angeles. And you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Our communities are interconnected.
Right.
And right now we're dealing with some issues.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you know, Bunchy Carter was always an icon that I think many people outside of Los Angeles really didn't know about. And was he, in terms of, because again, you're part of that era or just shortly thereafter. Do people should they study, you know, Bunchy's life, study Nipsey Hussle's life, saying that you have this generational similarity, but how to you're saying basically how to best address it in today's times?
Exactly. I mean, if for instance, if Nipsey had understood the struggles before him, he would have been a little more wary of the LAPD when he was talking about, I'm trying to reach out to the police like we gonna do good.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and remember it was that when they were trying to do, people were trying to do the gang truce in the early 90s.
Right. Oh yes.
LAPD said no gang truce. Okay, and that's because they best work under confusion in our community.
Right.
So they want a gang truce. Matter of fact, they said, oh no, that's going to cause one big super gang.
Right. That's right.
But what they were really saying was that's going to be one big unified Black youth.
Right. That's right.
That's what they were really saying. And
you know,
we're not going to have that.
And I think it was Lou Palmer who said that if you really look at it, the police department is the local military arm of the establishment. So its vested interest is to protect the interests of the establishment with the status quo maintained.
But when we understand the true role of law enforcement in our community, and don't get me wrong, it's not like we don't need law enforcement. Okay, you and I both know, man, there's some damn nuts that need to be in jail.
Oh yes.
Okay?
Right.
We've all met that person.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You know,
family members.
and I'm excluding people with mental health issues because that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about there's just some cruel people out there.
Right.
Okay. That don't consider other people's lives and things like that. Yeah, they have to be taken off the scene.
Okay.
But the role of the police in our community is not the same role that it is in the white communities.
Right.
Okay. You know, since, you know, we know that the police in our community started off as slave catchers.
That's right.
And then we've seen examples, you know, when you're talking about who was enforcing the Jim Crow laws, the Black codes, you know, the ability just to deputize white mobs and vigilantes. We've seen that from Greenwood to Rosewood. Yes, okay.
That's right.
Parts in between. So law enforcement means something different in the Black community. Okay, as the arm of the oppressor.
Right.
All right. So when we see the police, especially when it comes to a political movement in the community, they tend to be the ones that move against us.
Right. Right on. Yeah, that's so true. And I did want to tell you that John Bunchy Creer wanted to say hello to you. He looks forward to checking out the interview. Now, he was just in Los Angeles not too long ago, right?
Yes, and I want to share something with you that I had shared with Bunchy.
Okay.
Like you probably noticed with all this gray that we getting older, and I'm the younger person out of the group. Okay.
Well, y'all all looking good though.
Everybody else is older than me, but look here. I was looking through my stuff and I picked up a
right on. Yes.
edition of the Black Panther.
Right.
Okay.
Right on. Mm-hmm.
So I got the mirror view in here, but
Okay.
when I look in the paper, and remember what the paper was to give out news to the people, but also for the people to understand, what the Black Panther Party was about.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So you gotta be careful with this. This is
you gotta keep them real careful.
Yeah, this is from 1977. Point 5, we want education for our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want education that teaches our true history and our role in the present day society.
Right on. Mm-hmm. Right on. Yeah.
Now, that applies today, especially as we're dealing with this whole attack on the straw man that they've set up using the words critical race theory.
Right.
Okay. It is basically something that we've seen, for the past 40 years, since, 45 years or so, since the beginning of Black studies.
Right.
Was they've been wanting to eliminate it.
That's right.
They would rather go with the American lie.
Right.
Than with an American truth.
There it is.
Okay?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
Right. Because this is when we talk about Black history, we're talking about all ethnic history.
Right.
And we saw what happened in Arizona when they took out Chicano history.
Yeah, that's right.
They just wiped it out of the school. Now, Arizona, I mean, there are more than a few Chicanos in Arizona.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, Latinx, whatever you want to say, but I'm just saying that's how that state came about.
Right, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Same thing here in California.
That's right.
Right, these areas were all at one time part of Mexico.
That's right.
Now, you grew up in California, right?
No, actually, I grew up in, I'm originally from Miami, but I grew up in Louisiana. My mother and my grandmother were both born in New Orleans, lived in Baton Rouge. So my father's from Monroe, Louisiana.
Okay. Well, here in California, the average person doesn't really realize that this used to be part of Mexico. Wow. And don't understand that history. Okay. At one time in Mexico City, there were actually more enslaved Africans than there were Spanish.
Wow. Okay.
So that's why that's the reason why, for instance, over half of the original settlers for Los Angeles were of African descent.
Wow.
For the same reason.
And I was going to say, you state that in the book here. I mean, it gets deep into early California history, all the way up until even Bunchy Carter and the brother, I think his name was, what was it? He was with, I think he did the airport. He was the architect.
Paul Williams, the great architect, Paul Williams.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So when you understand that, the reason I wrote that book is I wanted people to identify some of the people, in Southern California, whose shoulders we stand on.
Right. Wow.
And that's not even, that's just the ones I could stuff in they only gave me 140 pages or something.
Okay.
Malik, when I pitched that book to the publisher, you know what they asked me?
What?
Do you think you have enough content?
Okay.
I was like, really? Look here, I have enough content to do 3 of those books.
Wow. Well, there's plenty of content for me, because they were just so dynamic. But one thing I would do want to ask, I think it was Picasso who once said that our goal in life is to discover our gift. Our purpose in life is to give it away or share it. When did you discover your gift for writing?
I've always liked writing. since I was probably in junior high school.
Okay.
Just writing, but I combine that with it's just funny because my history, my politics, and my writing all go together.
Okay, right.
So when I was in I grew up in Compton.
Okay, all right.
Right, during a special time in Compton when Compton was, and I recently wrote an article on this called "When Compton Was the Citadel of Black Political Power." It's on the kcet.org website.
Okay.
Public television station here in Los Angeles.
Right.
When we moved from Watts to Compton, my family moved there in 1961.
Okay.
And there was a demographic change that was taking place in the city. Let me digress, because you mentioned Paul Williams.
Mm-hmm.
In 1946, there was a woman named Velma Grant, and she saw the end of the war coming, and she saw an opportunity to build housing for the Black middle class and Black veterans that were coming home from.
Okay, all right.
Keep in mind that
during the double V campaign, right? Is that the double V?
That was part of the double V.
Yes.
Victory over Germany, victory at home against Jim Crow.
Right.
Jim Crow was still quite alive in 45.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
And Velma Grant saw that black soldiers were getting the GI bill. They were getting those grants for education and for housing.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, it wasn't uniform across the United States like you were in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
One of the compromises that Franklin Delano Roosevelt made when he did the GI Bill, in order to get it passed by the Southern Democrats, their demand was that the benefits be administered locally by the states. Okay, that's why just be suspicious. Anybody starts talking that states' rights crap,
right?
Just remember that was the bedrock of segregation. Okay.
Okay.
So you got Negroes now talking about states' rights like they don't have any damn sense.
Right. That's true. That's so
okay.
True.
Yeah. You got one out there.
Well, I know.
Let's just call the name. All right.
All right. I know you're talking about.
You beware of anybody that starts talking about this states' rights stuff, because what happened was FDR, in order to get it passed, he had to acquiesce to the Southern Democrats. And they said, yeah, okay, we love these benefits, but we're going to do it by state. And of course, in the Southern states, they said, Negro, you don't get none.
Okay. All right.
Okay, you're the soldier. You came back from World War II, but you think we handing out, houses and education to you?
Wow. Man.
But when you came out to California, it was a little more liberal.
Okay.
Okay. So people were able to take advantage of the housing and the education.
Okay.
And but what I was trying to say wasn't all over the country. It was in certain areas, depending on what state you were in.
Okay.
Velma Grant saw that, and she saw the opportunity, because no one, you could have that GI bill for your house, but if nobody's going to sell you a house in a decent neighborhood,
what good is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's so true.
So what she decided to do, because out here they were building these whole new cities, Lakewood, California. They drained building houses for returning veterans. Nothing for white people except the same old segregated neighborhoods, and housing that had been redlined for decades, which meant that you could not refinance your house and fix it up.
Right.
If you weren't handy with a hammer and a saw, or you didn't have any relatives that were, you were in tough shape.
Oh wow. Yeah. Okay? That's true.
A lot of people, you look over in Willowbrook, like around 124th, 125th in there, you'll see how people had added on to their houses.
Right.
Okay, they did that with other family members and everything, because they couldn't get a loan to just get. And so when they tried to sell the houses, a lot of times they didn't have the permits. And the government was saying, knock that down. I said, wait a minute, that's my 3 bedrooms I put up for, my, you see what I'm saying? So people started laying low. Then it became difficult even to refinance what you had.
Wow.
See what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
a trick box. It was a trap.
Right. Well, a lot of people don't realize that many of these communities, say Compton, Linwood, they were lily white. Is that right? I mean, at
That's
one point.
correct.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that.
Up until well, this is what I'm getting with Velma Grant, because Compton was not just white, it was also very Mormon.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Even though it was actually initially started by a Methodist church, it was a Methodist agricultural collective that had come down from Stockton, about 30 families that actually originally settled Compton.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But by the 50s, 40s, 50s, you had a strong Mormon contingent.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind that not until 1977, Mormon church documents said that Black people didn't have souls.
Right.
I always say, well, I guess they never met Aretha Franklin or James Brown.
Right. Or the ham theory they used to always try to recite.
Yeah. So all of a sudden God changed, and all of a sudden we had souls after 77.
Right. Okay.
I was in Harlem one time with my wife, and we're walking down the street. We look up on 125th and Lenox Avenue is a Mormon temple.
Wow.
That's what I said.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Harlem doesn't look like Harlem now.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, what? Where am I at?
Once Clinton went up there, it's like it just opened the door.
Everything up. Oh yeah, we were in Sylvia's, and they brought in they were trying to get us to hurry up and finish eating because they were bringing in they had bus tours of Asian tourists.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
Like so much for leisurely breakfast. We got to make room for these bus loads of tourists that they wanted to.
Man, I tell you. But I was going to ask, before we get too far, I want to see, when did your family? Okay, you have Louisiana roots and Georgia roots. Explain some of those roots and how the family got out to California.
Well, I'll start with my on the Georgia side. That's my on my father's side.
Okay, all right.
As far back as I could find, that the Johnsons came out of Beaver County.
Okay, all right.
Beaver Falls, someplace like that. It was called Beaver Falls.
Okay.
And they had moved. So I imagine they had been enslaved in that area.
Okay.
They moved to Athens, where my great grandfather was a sharecropper, Floyd Johnson.
Okay.
My grandfather was the one in the family who could read and write and everything. So he kind of kept the books. And the sharecropping system was just another way that they devised to mimic slavery.
Right. Okay.
And my grandfather was actually keeping the books for his father. And one year when they came up, they said, "Oh wow, we made a little profit." And so my great grandfather Floyd went to the landowner and basically said, "This is what you owe me." And the landowner said, "No, nigga, this is what you owe me."
Wow.
Okay.
Slavery by another name.
And my grandfather my great grandfather basically had said, "Well, my son, put together this ledger, and I believe it's correct, and this is what you owe me." So he stood up for himself. And so what the landowner did was, he had his pet Negro basically almost beat my great grandfather to death.
Wow.
Cross talking him.
Okay. Wow.
It's like, nigga, you don't cross talk. You hear the family lore for years, so that's why I can almost say it in the first person, but that's how it was taught to me.
Okay. When
his sons found out that their father was beaten almost to death, they didn't take it well. Okay. One of the older brothers, my uncle Ike, was already known for carrying a gun and everything. I was trying to find out if he belonged to the African Blood Brotherhood, because he seemed to have the temperament that. Okay. Blood Brotherhood was very active right around that time.
Okay.
1917.
Okay. Wow.
So, but I don't know that for sure. He just seemed like that. It's like, okay, he was armed, and people knew he was armed.
Okay.
So when they found their father, my grandfather and his brothers went back and confronted the landowner, and they killed the pet Negro and they killed the landowner.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
So that meant it was time to go.
Yes. Wow. Incredible.
So what they did was they, and this is a story, this is a similar story that you hear a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
They had to go.
you hear a lot, very similar stories, because when you had a dispute with the landowner,
Mhm.
you did not have any viable way of dealing with it.
Mhm.
What, you gonna go to the court?
Right. Right.
That's like a Palestinian going to the Israeli Supreme
I
Court
know.
and saying,
Going between
oh,
Frank James and Jesse James, right?
thank you.
Either way, you're gonna
Okay.
get robbed.
So they had, you know, when my grand uncles and my grandfather had come back to their home and told their father what they had done, he said, you know, pack everything up.
Wow.
And they tried to leave in that one night, and they tried to warn some of the other relatives. I had relatives who had actually owned property. They didn't want to go.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. And some of them had their property burned, and some of them were lynched
Wow.
because they couldn't get who they wanted.
Right.
So my grandfather's family, they traveled. First, they went to Kentucky.
Okay.
My great grandfather Floyd was so badly injured that he really couldn't travel much further.
Okay.
So I think one or two of the daughters stayed with him, but the boys had to keep going because, you know, they were looking for it,
Right. Right.
especially my Uncle Ike.
Okay.
So they went from Kentucky, they kept going, they got to Cincinnati. And as you know, once you cross the Ohio River, you're in the north,
Right.
and that's supposed to be safety.
Right. Supposed to be right. That's true.
If you ever get a chance, go to the Underground Museum there in Cincinnati.
Okay. Yeah, I go to Cincinnati frequently, going up to Chicago or Indianapolis. Yeah.
My wife's from Cincinnati, and we had a chance to go to the Underground Museum.
Okay.
And if you want, I can't even describe the sensation, but as you go into the museum, you come up an elevator and you come off on that first floor there with the floor to ceiling windows, and you're looking out at the bridge that goes over the Ohio River, and you're looking into Kentucky, rolling green hills.
Yes. Mhm.
And I had the headset on, and it's saying you were looking into the land of slavery.
Wow. Wow.
And people risked their lives. Many people died trying to get across that river.
I used to actually live in Cincinnati, Ohio, from my mother's side for about, I think, 6 to 8 months. And I remember living in Cincinnati and seeing Kentucky on the other side of this big, I guess, river or whatever it was. I do remember that.
Yeah, the Ohio River.
Yeah.
And you know, we talk about the Berlin Wall, and we talk about this, that, and other. It's like, oh, what about the Ohio River? How many people trying to escape slavery? How many people died trying to get across that river?
Right. Wow. Now, what about your? I was going to say, what about your mother's
let,
side? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not even finished yet.
Oh, okay.
You
All
don't
right.
hear the story. You don't want to ask for the story, brother. So when they get to Cincinnati, that's not far enough. My Uncle Ike's name's in the paper and everything.
Okay.
So they go from Cincinnati to Toledo. Now they end up leaving one or two, a brother or a sister behind in each city they stay in. They get to Toledo, and they're feeling pretty comfortable. My Uncle Ike keeps going. My Uncle Ike says, "No,
not far enough."
Yeah, it's like, you know, they call him my name. He found out that they were building a railroad spur in Pocatello, Idaho.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And you know, you get much further to the north of that, and you're in Canada.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is southern Idaho, and so there's work there, and they're hiring everybody.
All right.
So my Uncle Ike had gone up there, and he called back for my grandfather, who was in Toledo, and basically said, "Hey, there's work up here, and you know, we could lay low up here in Pocatello."
Okay. All right.
They went to Pocatello. Now, my grandfather and his brother, they actually snuck back into Georgia to get two women which later became their wives.
Oh, okay. All right.
Grandmother, my great grandmother.
Wow.
Okay.
That's what love does, right?
Yeah, they risked their lives to go back into Georgia to get these women, like I said, one being my grandmother. And my great grandmother, because it's funny, they were mother and daughter already, right? Okay. But when my Uncle Ike married the mother, my grandfather married the daughter.
Wow. Okay. Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then when they got back, my Uncle Ike changed his name to Charlie Morris.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so I got a bunch of cousins named Morris. They're actually Johnsons. I don't even know.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Now I'm gonna tell you. But now, just to show you how weird life is. I'm over in the Crenshaw Mall one day, and I'm coming out. I get my hats over at the Crenshaw Mall.
Okay, all right.
So I'm coming out of the shop, and they have these little massage chairs, and there was this brother sitting there, and I like to think I'm a friendly brother. I say hello,
right,
and then we just started talking, right? And I said, well, what is your name? He said, oh, George Johnson. Like, George Johnson, where are you from? Toledo.
Wow.
He's my cousin.
Wow.
He came from my grandfather's brother, William. Okay. He was William's grandson. And
you just walked up to a random person
we just happened to start talking.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Wow. I mean, that was just crazy. I was like, what? Because I was telling him the story like I'm telling you.
Yes.
And of course it was familiar to him.
Wow. Man, I tell you, that's an incredible story right there. You probably need to write a book on your whole family legacy and history, because that's amazing.
Well, I'm not finished yet.
Oh, okay, all right.
It gets even deeper.
All right.
Now, my grandfather becomes pretty well known in Pocatello. He's the guy to go to get a job with the railroad at one time.
Okay.
So when Black people came into the city, they were able to get work. Right. Okay. He was also one of the founders of the local Baptist church.
Okay.
Anyway, my aunt, his daughters, okay, were kind of shy and everything, and my grandmother put them in, I don't know, like modeling school or something.
Okay.
And they did very well.
Okay. All right.
Matter of fact, my aunt Dorothy did so well, and you can look this up on blackpast.org, Dorothy Johnson. She became the first Black Miss Idaho in 1964.
Oh, wow. Dorothy Johnson. Okay. Blackpast.org. Okay. Wow. That's incredible.
So she actually goes to the, I guess, Miss World pageant or whatever. It was in Florida. But she doesn't like to fly.
Okay. All right.
Afraid to fly.
Right.
So she has to take the train, which meant she had to go through Georgia. My grandfather has still had trauma from the racism in Georgia, and plus he couldn't go.
Right.
My grandmother went.
Okay. Wow.
So that was just he's trying to keep a low profile, and his daughter ends up, first Black Miss Idaho.
Wow.
They got the international press coming through there asking them questions. This was during the civil rights era and
everything. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Right.
So this is
that's a lot to
that's a lot on my grandfather. So then eventually, my father ends up in the war. And can we pause for a second?
Oh, sure. If you got to go do something, I still have to keep recording, but if you need to get up and get something, it's no problem.
Yeah, just hold on. Just a second.
Sure. All right, take your time.
Yeah, I apologize.
Oh, that's all right.
Anyway.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so my grandfather was trying to keep a low profile, and now the international press is coming by trying to see who's this Black woman. People didn't even know where Idaho. My aunt used to always tell me how she laughed. She'd be down there in Miami, and these people thought that they would see her, and they thought she was representing another country.
Oh, they didn't know Idaho was part of Union.
Exactly. They Miss Idaho. They were like,
what is that?
you speak English so well.
Wow, incredible.
Okay, they were like,
that's incredible.
What can you say?
Wow.
So anyway, so the family high is basically in Pocatello.
Okay, all right. On all father side, right?
So what happens is my father ends up in the Korean War, gets drafted.
Okay.
He was one of the last of the Buffalo Soldiers.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. Salute.
He was
salute.
Yeah, he was in Company K, the 24th
regiment. Okay, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, regiment. Thank you. Mm-hmm. His company K was overrun by the Chinese. I tried to talk to my dad about it. It was really pretty horrible. Okay. Because what happened was their units were in the front, white units were up on the ridge of the hills. Okay, but where my dad was, they were down in the valley. And there was a Black artillery group that was using artillery shells from World War II. Because, Black troops did not get the newest equipment.
Right.
They got leftovers from World War II. And that included the artillery. And so some of those shells, they called them short shells because they didn't fire where they were supposed to be going. They ended up firing short. And they were landing on the troops up front where my dad was.
Wow. So-called friendly fire, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they called them up and said it was short shells, and they knew that they were getting shelled from behind, but also from the front. So when the Chinese attacked, the white troops that were on the ridges, they pulled back. Everybody pulled back, but they forgot to tell the Negroes up front. Involuntary rear guard action, okay?
Wow.
Because they're fighting anyway, they get all wiped out. Only 6 of them survived, and one of them was my father.
Wow. Well, my goodness. That is
he laid in the mud for 3 days, pretending like he was dead.
Wow.
Before he tried to walk back to the American lines that were falling back during that time.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah.
I remember as a kid seeing this magazine, a sepia magazine.
Okay.
And they were telling the story, and my mother was saying, because it was on the cover, she said, "That's your father." Said,
wow.
Because my father would never talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
I would see in his bedroom, he would have his mirror, and he had some photographs of when he was in Korea.
Okay.
But he would have nightmares. I think children of combat veterans know.
Right.
They wake up shrieking.
Right. Kind of post-traumatic.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
So that was just hard. So it's not until recently, my father's still alive, that he started telling me the story.
Okay.
So he had this one picture with these brothers in a Jeep, and he was telling me how, like a few minutes after that picture was taken, they hit a landmine in that Jeep and they were all killed.
Wow.
Things like that. He described having Thanksgiving dinner. They had the rations, which were usually cold.
Right.
The only place that they could sit on, they had stacked up the bodies of the enemy that they picked up out of the field. They stacked them up, and everything's rainy and muddy. And the only place that they had to sit was on top of the dead bodies.
Wow. Wow.
Man. Now, what my father told me, he says, at the time, at the time I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just, I needed to sit just to be, dry.
Right.
But it came back in his nightmares.
Oh, okay. Right. That's trauma. Yeah.
And unfortunately, during that time, there was no psychological intervention or anything like that. They just sent him home.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. My father had to deal with all that by himself.
Wow. No psychiatrist, nothing to get past that. Right. Wow.
So, I look at all that, because that also affected, my family and how we grew up.
Right.
Because, like I said, my mother and dad divorced when I was about 5 years old. She married my stepfather.
Okay.
Compton.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
That's that side of the family. See, you asked.
Okay.
Now,
All
my
right.
mother's side of the family from New Orleans.
Okay.
But I'm gonna give you some family history.
Okay. All right.
I've been able to trace back my family to Elizabeth Claude.
Okay.
My mother's maiden name is Claude.
Okay.
Back to about 1811.
Okay. All right. Wow.
She was in New Orleans. She had been the slave of a man named Brule, who sold her to a man named Claude. Okay.
Right.
And Mr. Claude owned a mirror factory in New Orleans.
Okay.
Okay. So he had two children by her.
Okay. Wow.
Atos and I forget, it's either Claudette or Claudia. But these names are constants in my family.
All right.
Atos and his sister basically lived as free Black people.
Okay.
In right outside of New Orleans in Jefferson Parish, there was a town called Mechanics Village, which was a village of free Black people.
Okay.
So she raised her children as free Black people, even though I'll just jump ahead. In 1856, she's older now, okay? The children are grown, but Mr. Claude decides that he's gonna close up his shop and move back to us.
Okay.
So he hires an agent to liquidate all of his property.
Okay.
Including his slaves.
Okay.
So on the book was Elizabeth and her children, his property.
Right.
So in 1856, she actually goes to court. And this is landmark because this is pre-Civil War Louisiana.
Okay.
And just the fact that she was able to go to court showed that, she went to court as a free person, a Black person of color. Right. But it showed that they had that she had standing in court because they took the case.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
The issue was she a slave or was she free? Okay. And what she produced was a receipt. She said that she had bought her freedom for $500 and the freedom of her two children.
Wow. And people got to realize how much $500 was back then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he did cut him a break. It's like, a slave could go for $750 all by themselves, let alone the two children.
Right.
Anyway, she only had a receipt for $250.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Which is why she was in court.
Okay. All right.
I just find that funny because we come up like that. We come up short. It's like, I gave him $500, I got a receipt for $250.
That's right. Right.
It was, the case was settled. So there was because it's in the law books. One of my cousins had actually found this.
Okay.
Who's Dorothy Brown.
Right.
They settled the case, which means that she somehow raised the other $250.
Okay. All right. Oh, wow. Okay.
So as I'm going through the census, you'll see, I was watching how my grandfather's name is Athos. My mother's father's name is Athos. I have an uncle Athos, and I got cousins named Athos.
All right.
But Athos isn't a French name. Athos was an anglicized version of Atos.
Okay. All right.
Name was Atos, but over the years it became Athos.
Right. Kind of evolved. Right.
Exactly. More broken down.
So
right. Anyway, so I just say that to say that we had deep roots in Louisiana.
Okay.
My grandfather, Athos Claude,
all right.
Son of Abner Claude.
All right.
did not want to raise his children under Jim Crow.
Right.
I mean, he knew that.
Right.
My grandfather was very, very conscious.
Mhm.
You know, we like to say for that time, I just say he
Right.
was just conscious.
Right. Okay.
After he got my grandmother, this is in the 1930s, a friend of his hooks him up to work for the railroad. So he ends up working for the railroad, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters.
Okay.
And he looks at the East Coast, he looks at the West Coast, and he decides to take my grandmother and his family. My mother was already born; she was born in New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And matter of fact, the first 2 or 3 kids were born in New Orleans. Then he brings them to Los Angeles.
Wow. Okay.
They get there in 38,
Wow. Okay.
39, 1939.
Wow. All right.
My mother would describe, you know, when she first came to Los Angeles, coming from Union Station, looking at the palm trees.
Wow. Like paradise.
Yeah, it was like, where are we now? You know?
Right.
And the first place they lived was in East LA. They lived in Aliso Village.
Okay. All right.
You know, I always tell people this, you know, when I was a kid, I was a lowrider. I liked to lowride. I had a 68 Impala.
Oh, okay. All right.
And one of the conversations we'd always have is, well, who was lowriding first? Was it the black kids or was it the Chicanos? Who was it?
Right.
And I always say it was, we all lived together. We did it at the same time.
Oh, okay. All right. They cleared that up.
Yeah, because you know when we talk about the Zoot Suit riots.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, it's very famous.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They make it seem like, oh, it was all Chicano thing, but no.
Mm-hmm.
And during World War II, during the migration, everything had gotten overpopulated, and they had taken the Japanese out of downtown, where the area called Little Tokyo.
Yes. Yeah.
Because they put them in concentration camps. And so all that was open. So the new black immigrants that were coming to work at the factories, okay, with the Great Migration, they came to an area, which is now Little Tokyo. They had changed the name, called it Bronzeville.
Okay. Kind of like in Chicago, Brownsville, where they had an enclavement or enclave of black people. Yes.
Yes. Okay. They called it Bronzeville, but it was Little Tokyo.
Okay. Right. Right.
Okay. And then plus, when you really look at the history of Los Angeles, the black community around the turn of the last century, 1900, starts at around 5th and Central Avenue.
Okay. All right.
There's a little story there because the Mexican American railroad workers were going on strike at the turn of the century for better pay.
Okay. All right.
And the railroad said no.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So at the time, at the census said for the not the black Hispanics, but for American black people, they counted about 2,000 people.
Okay.
The railroad, in order to break the strike, went down south and hired over 2,000 black people and brought them to Los Angeles, virtually doubling the population.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Then they sold them houses because you had that railroad land. You got houses for what? You know, $5 down, $5 a month.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you know, these were strike breakers. This is how they were going to control the workers, by pitting the black workers against the brown workers.
Oh yeah, divide and conquer. Right.
So they gave them here's housing. You can stay here, and you know, just like in you know, you go to the Detroit area and you go to Inkster, Michigan.
Right.
And you know, that's a company created town. The Ford Motor Company created that during the Great Migration for black people to strike break and control the workers. Okay, right. Black laborers, strike breakers. They controlled the local churches. See, the company Ford would would just say, "Look here, I'll sponsor your church. Just make sure you don't talk that union stuff."
Okay.
Yeah. You know, and I'll hire out of your church. But, you know, you go against what the corporation's about, and we'll cut you off.
Okay. All right.
And you see that here in Los Angeles. Look to see who sponsors some of these churches.
Okay.
All right. You know, I mean, they're looking, oh, that's nice. Disney sponsors this church. What are they doing when they hire these people? What's the strings? You see what I'm saying? So that patronage still goes on.
Right.
So they did that at the turn of the last century. That's what put us on Central Avenue.
Okay.
Because ever since then, we started moving down Central Avenue. And of course, at the southern end of Central Avenue is Compton.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So after time, because you go straight down Central, you hit Watts in the 50s, which already has a sizable Black community there. And Compton is next.
Right.
Talked about Velma Grant. She put 350 Black homeowning families right there in Willowbrook on the northwest border of Compton, which allowed us to start moving. Once restrictive covenants were gone in 48, Black people start coming through the west side of Compton.
Okay. What
happens with that by the early 1960s, the west side of Compton is basically a Black community. We end up electing Douglas Dollarhide as a city councilman.
Okay.
And Lionel Cade gets elected as a city council.
Okay.
First time in Compton history.
Wow.
And of course, by 1969, Dollarhide, because now Black people, by 1969, Black people are basically the majority in half of the city. The east side of Compton is controlled, basically inhabited by white people who are kind of still pissed off. And we elect the first Black mayor of a major municipality west of the Mississippi, with a majority Black city council, majority Black school board. When I went to school in Compton, we started the day by singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing."
Wow.
Okay. Right. We just didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance and stuff like that. And they used to let the Muslim brothers opt out of the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. You see that the Muslim brothers they just stepped outside. Some of the Jehovah Witnesses, they'd go outside and do but everybody stayed for Lift Every Voice and Sing. Okay. All right. That's the unifier. That's right. Okay. Now you talk to somebody, if they went to school during that era, they will tell you that they will know the song. Okay. You don't have that anymore. Yes. Okay. Right. You went to school in LA or something like that? No, they didn't sing that every morning. Wow. I did have one question. Oh, okay. No, I was going to ask, with this recruitment of Black workers and Black people coming out to, get these jobs, there was also recruitment of the LAPD in Texas, Mississippi, Alabama for white boys to come police these communities. Is that correct? Oh, very correct. Matter of fact, one of my neighbors is. My neighbors behind me is Dr. Singleton. Okay. Dr. Robert and Helen Singleton were freedom riders. Along with people like Bob Farrell, who was a former Los Angeles city councilman. When they were in college, when they were at UCLA, in the late 50s, early 60s, they basically risked their lives by becoming freedom riders and drove through the South. And they were arrested in Mississippi. They were sent to Parchment Prison. Okay. Yeah, the harshest prisons in Mississippi. I heard about that one. Yeah. The place when you go to Mississippi, you don't want to go. Right. Okay. I got you. Yeah, I got you. And Helen Singleton, Mrs. Singleton she's an artist in her own right. Matter of fact, they found not recent, but a few years ago, they found a piece of her protest art over at UCLA that had been covered up. Okay. So they uncovered it and everything. They had a big ceremony. Anyway, she describes seeing, as they were booking her, advertisement posters, basically to come to the LAPD. Parker at that time, who was the chief, Parker, he believed that the Southern whites knew how to handle Negroes. Yeah. It was basically his rationale. Right. And of course, you remember during the Watts Rebellion, he was basically just put it straight out. It's like, we want things the way they're supposed to be, them on the bottom, us on top. Status quo. Status quo. So, this is when the party made the analysis that the police were occupying force in our community, they were not a help. They were not they were not doing the role that that normative role that the police should have been doing.
Right. Protect and serve
Exactly.
instead of patrol and control.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what they were doing was basically instead of, like you said, protect and to serve, there was to suppress and contain.
Right. Mhm.
Remember, every time you went out of your community, first, what you doing here?
Right.
Where
Right.
you
Yeah.
going?
Yeah. I remember that during my era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, and those same questions, contain.
Yeah.
Well, letting you know you're out of bounds. You're not supposed to be here.
Right.
Okay. So their job became suppress and contain property over people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They were there to protect property,
Right.
not so much people.
Right. You can even say it all the time.
Okay. And so Dr. Newton always talked about making the correct analysis,
Mhm.
because if we don't make a correct analysis of the social phenomena in our community, then how can we develop an effective strategy to deal with it?
That's true. That's so true. And leading into that, what about your involvement in the party? Because John has shared so many stories with John Bunchy Greer, including you going up to the headquarters in Oakland and working with you as well. And then you talk about the Compton chapter. Give me a little bit of that history.
Well, I was first, how would you say, my first contact with the party was I was much younger. I was actually too young to be in the party.
Okay.
I was with my cousins, and we had gone to the team post over here off Central Ave, and there was this cat who was basically, you had the older black teenager who were running the team post basically.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it then, but Bunchy's mom had basically had set these team posts up. And but all you knew was everybody was having fun. The music was banging, and this brother Puppy had stopped the music, and in those days people would stop the music and they would either do some poetry,
Okay.
or they would just drop some knowledge on them.
Okay. All right. Right on.
This time it happened to be this brother named Bunchy Carter.
Mm. Okay.
Now, I didn't know nothing about the Black Panther Party. I didn't know nothing about Bunchy,
Right.
except my cousins. My cousins were aware of Bunchy from his reputation as being in the Slossons, because they had gone to Manual, and I think Bunchy and them had gone to Fremont. Okay, but they had known who they were.
Right.
So I was a kid tagging along with them.
Okay.
And I just remember he just dropped, and everything was quiet, and it was like, whoa. And he just broke down with a couple of poems, and he talked about the Black Panther Party. And I asked him a question. I forgot even what the question was, but I just remember he said, "That was a good question, young brother. I'm gonna keep an eye on you."
All right.
I always remember that.
Right on.
And then after that, it was years, but I became involved as a community worker when the party had moved over in Stockwell, because there was a breakfast program over in Watts, and I would help out in the breakfast program. Okay. Me and some of my friends from school. So we like community. We weren't disciplined cadre. We were just kids that showed up to help.
Okay, right on. All right.
But that stayed with me. The radicalizing incident was December 12th. I saw the police shoot this guy in the back one time. They were chasing, these guys were robbery suspects. They had chased him down Wilmington. And this guy, he wasn't on, he banged on doors trying to get away. Right. And this guy just dropped down on one knee and just fired on him. Wow. So I remember I saw that and I was like, man, but I'm a kid, right?
Right.
And then on December 2nd, 1972, I'd been gone all day, and I came back and my neighborhood was like blocked off by the police. And it was the sheriff. The sheriff actually kept the Compton police out of their perimeter.
Okay.
And what had happened was they had shot a 13-year-old girl named Marquita Fox.
Okay.
Now, I lived on Cedar Street, and the Faust family lived on Spruce. So they were like, Maple. They were like 2 blocks away from me. Okay.
Yeah.
I went to school with her older brothers, Cecil and Keith Faust. And brothers came door to door.
Okay.
Now this was the remnants of the chapter, because everybody, basically the chapter had closed and everybody moved that February.
Okay.
But they had left there was a basically like a skeleton crew down here.
Okay.
Alan Moore one time described it to me as the subterranean chapter.
Oh, okay.
He
Wow.
thought that underground had been overused.
Right.
You know, just something. And you'll talk to Comrade Tato about that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we have. Yes.
So these brothers came out and they went basically door to door through the neighborhood. I mean, just old fashioned, using that shoe leather to organize.
Right.
They explained what happened. Police came, they shot this 13-year-old girl in the head, and we're having a meeting tonight because they arrested his mother and they have charged her with murder. So we all showed up, and that was my first really dealing with organizing around police brutality.
Okay. Wow. And it's, I just want to jump in real quick. That similar parallel happened with me with Latasha Harlins. I knew his auntie, the one with the long nails. I think she's gone now, but I can't remember her name offhand. But that kind of drew me into a greater consciousness and in opposition to the police and the power structure, if you will. So Latasha Harlins was that for me.
Well, later on I found out that David Blake, he was in the house. DJ Quick was her younger brother.
Right.
So I don't know if he was even born when that happened in '72, or if he was just, he had to, if he was probably just a baby. Wow. But that traumatized the whole family.
Okay.
I mean, you could just imagine it. And then here's the thing with me. Because there's always this color contradiction. Okay. See, the 2 cops that came in and did all this, one cop was trying to arrest Mrs. Thompson. They had pulled her out of her house and they're banging her head in the patrol car, trying to get her in the car. That's when the daughter comes out, because they were chasing these guys, supposed to be in a stolen car, and they ended up just breaking in the door to their house because they thought they knew who they were, so they thought that they were in the house, but in fact they weren't.
Okay. And
it was just Ms. Faust and her daughter in the house. Okay. Police come kicking in your door, man, and they're tossing everything, looking for somebody who is not there. Okay. So when they're arresting her and everything, the cop who's grabbing the mother, he's trying to get a hold of her, but he drops his sidearm. And being 13, 14 years old, she dips down and the other cop shoots her in the head.
Wow. Man.
The other cop was a Negro.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
So think about 1972.
Right.
Who's the only group out there on the Black left who's making the correct analysis on that?
That's right. Black Panther Party for self-defense. Yeah.
That was it.
Yes.
Black Panther Party said it, it's like they're cops. It's not black cops, white cops, whatever cops. It's what those cops are doing.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based on the color. If it's a black cop shooting your kid, that kid's just as dead as a white cop that shot your kid.
That's right. Well, I remember Michael Zindon used to always say, I don't want a black knee on my neck, and I don't want a white knee on my neck. I just want to get off me. And talk about your history in CAPA, Coalition Against Police Abuse.
Well, one of the things we're doing, when we talk about Point 7 of Black Panther Party,
yes,
organizing around police brutality and murder. When I met Kwaku, he was organizing the defense committee for his sister, Betty Scott, and that was out of Long Beach. And at the time, myself and a few other brothers, we were out of the Black Student Union there. This is where we had reopened the chapter. we started working with Kwaku. Betty had set up a school in Long Beach called the Intercommunal Youth Institute, and Bob worked with his sister there. So when she was killed, it was a big blow to the community there. She'd been a tireless worker, and it was setting up an institution. So one of the things we would use different, especially the Black Student Union, as a community group, you need resources.
Right.
And the universities do provide resources. You just have to work in tandem with a campus organization. And so that's what we were doing. So we began working with it was called the Scott Smith Committee.
Okay.
Challenging the California Highway Patrol over what had happened to Bob's sister.
Right.
Okay. It was George Scott George Smith and Betty Scott. Anyway, so as we participated with different actions around that, we started noticing that every time we went somewhere, there were 3, 4, 5 other defense committees of Black people who had been shot by the police.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, every time you turn around, it was another justice or defense committee, because the defense committee, the difference was you have somebody who's you're trying to get out of jail or whatever.
Right.
But for the most part, these all involved police killings, police shooting.
Okay.
But there was not one umbrella organization to deal with it. I mean, we were all doing, you saw, 50 different defense committees doing 50 different things.
Yeah, but not unified. Right.
Exactly. So Kwaku and eventually Michael, I can't think of the Chicano brother who was involved. Okay. Because he was one of the first vice chairs. I don't remember his name. Anyway, got together and started a series of preliminary planning meetings for a new organization that would be inclusive of all of these different defense committees and have everybody working with each other.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Eventually, what that led to was, under Michael Zinzin later, because this is several years,
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Changing the shooting policy of the LAPD.
That's right.
Okay, so some of the, we got some small victories, but the major thing we were able to do was to educate the community on the role of the police and showing people that there were ways to deal with, organizing progressive lawyers, setting up bail funds and things of that nature. Right. So, the Coalition Against Police Abuse, eventually, I think in '76, we opened up the first office on Main Street.
Okay.
So that was before the office over on Western.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that, because I used to go to the one on Western. That's where Michael Zinzin was, right?
First office was actually right on Main Street, and we get a lot of harassment from police during the PDID scandal. When we were getting the papers back, we saw that some of the infiltrators had been identified because Michael was smart.
Well, okay, right.
Look here, Michael had organized a group to basically do background checks.
Okay. All right.
So they were able to expose some of the informants because they went through the voter registration rolls and of everybody. So you had one person like Eddie Sullivan, and there was another one, female, and I forgot her name, who on their voter registration card put police recruit.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's obvious. There it is.
So I mean, wow. So Michael, was on top of a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. And Michael himself was a victim of police brutality.
Yes, he lost his eye.
Yeah,
he lost his eye when they were wrestling him up there in Pasadena.
Right.
But even when we had the PDID suit, they were pressuring the ACLU to cut Michael loose. Otherwise, there was the LAPD was going to settle and all this. And there were a group of us who said, well, they don't need to settle. We need to take this to court all the way. Simply because there was another group that was doing the same thing we were, that were suing Chicago police. and they were taking it to court, because
Right.
to me, I just believe that if you go to open court, people get to see
Right.
exactly what was done.
Right. Get to hear the
And
details.
if you settle it, it's just settle it. And I'll tell you,
It
one of
goes
the
away.
things,
Yeah.
it go, and that's what they do to make it go away. Okay,
Right.
here we'll settle. We'll give. They said they'll give $100,000 towards documenting police abuse or whatever.
Mhm.
When most of the agreements that were in that settlement agreement got thrown out the door after 2001.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Okay.
After September 11th,
Mhm.
oh no, terrorism, and they threw most of that stuff out.
Wow. Wow.
And they didn't consult any of us plaintiffs. They didn't
Mm.
ask, they just, this is what we're doing because we're in this state of hysteria.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mhm.
we're going to throw these provisions out, and we're going after everybody.
Okay. Wow. And what was your relationship with Brother Sharif, who was a close comrade of mine, along with Boko, and of course Kato? So talk about those three a little bit in your relationship.
Well, when I met Sharif, he was a teenager,
Okay.
and he was out there in Carson, and he had actually, when we were organizing the chapter,
Mhm.
he had actually Sharif and Greg, they were almost like a team.
Mhm.
I can't think of Greg's last name. They were always together. They were good friends.
Okay. All right.
They had actually contacted the party in Oakland because they wanted to also reopen the chapter.
Okay. All right. All right.
So Oakland had put them in contact with us.
Okay.
So Sharif, was Sharif was very intellectually curious.
Mm. Right.
Sharif read. Sharif was like he was taking in the information.
Mm.
Okay. He, as you know, he was a hard worker.
Yeah. Dynamic speaker.
He,
Became
yeah,
one at least. Yes.
yeah. So and I watched him develop.
Mm-hmm.
Watched
Right.
him develop like that. So by the time he got like to the Vanguard, he was well versed.
Mm-hmm.
But first met him, his street mentality grew more and more into a revolutionary,
Okay. All right.
and he became quite a revolutionary.
Okay. And he was born Robert Kendricks.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Then became Sharif Abdullah. Right.
exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Now, what about brother? I'm sorry. Were you finished with Sharif? Because I was going to ask about brother Boko because, like I said, he was so close with me.
Well, I met Boko like I said when he came out here from Texas, when he was out here in Los Angeles,
Okay.
and working with the chapter and everything. And he was because I was always curious about Carl Hampton, so he was able to really fill me in on what was happening there, and from his point of view.
Right.
And I mean, anybody who met Boko just knew he was a genuine person.
Yeah.
You can see why he joined the party because he was about uplifting the community,
Yeah.
Telling our stories, and he told, I write to tell our stories, but he told our stories through art.
Yes. Right. Right. That's right.
His art was telling our stories.
Wow.
And well, as you well know, when he came to art, he was very serious.
Oh, he was. Yes. He was really our version of Emory in Los Angeles. Yes.
Yes.
And I
very,
definitely want to send a condolences to Sister Akila as well. I know you had a chance to see both of them at the 50th.
yeah. So I sorry, we never forget. I got a picture somewhere where we were together,
Okay.
and at the table there, and I like that picture.
Oh, well, I have it as well. Yes, yes, absolutely. And what about Kato, brother Kato, who a very legendary brother. A lot of people don't. Yeah,
I
okay.
didn't have a lot of interaction with him
Okay.
during that time because he was mainly in Los Angeles and we were in Compton.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we just didn't interact as much.
Okay. All right.
So there's not a lot I can say. I know he was very dedicated brother. I know he ran the physical education survival program, and seemed to be very, very knowledgeable, very, very competent.
Okay. Yeah. And tell me about Sister Connie, because you posted a picture of the sister with this beautiful illuminating afro. And it just, first I thought it was Angela Davis. I was like, wait a minute, but it just said, she just, like I said, the picture just took my breath away. Talk about some of your comrades, including Sister Connie, that worked in the Compton chapter.
Well, Comrade Connie, she was over our finances, and she worked with the cadre that worked with the Compton Neighborhood Tutorial Program.
Okay.
So she helped organize that.
Okay.
This is a young lady I had known from junior high school.
Wow.
Okay, we kind of knew each other then, and then kind of lost contact during high school. And while we were organizing the Compton branch, ran into each other again.
Okay.
So her brother Tyler was always helping with us and everything. And she got involved, and she was just put it this way. A lot of times the brothers were ready to run. They wanted to put on a leather jacket and run, put on a tam and run to a rally.
Right.
But we know that everyday work that had to be put in.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It was sisters like Connie that did that.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right there on the ground, working with the people, and making the programs that we came up with, making them a reality.
Okay. All right. Go from theory to practice.
There's a lot of sisters like that, a lot of unsung. Exactly. There are a lot of unsung sisters that have that role. Okay.
Wow. Yeah.
So
did you know Peaches?
Fortunately, we lost. No,
oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I met her, but I didn't know her.
Okay.
But unfortunately, we lost her about 3 years ago.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And like I say, I just had never known much about the Compton chapter. Obviously, you hear about different chapters and branches, but for whatever reason, because I think Wayne, was he at the Watts chapter as well?
Well, Wayne, like I said, this was an earlier cadre.
Oh, you're right.
There was an office on 103rd Street.
Okay.
So which got burned during the whole defection thing. Mm-hmm. They burned that office down.
Okay.
But yeah, there were Wayne and Mubarak and a lot of others, but they worked out of the Watts office.
Okay. All right. And what was your relationship with the Freeman brothers? Because I got to know both of them very well. I was a little closer with Ronald because I would always see him either at the Elegant Manor, where he was, I think he was a chaplain with the Universal Negro Improvement Association at the time. And then I'd see him by Michael Zinzin's, the office over there. But what was your relationship, or how did you, what was your relationship with the Freeman brothers?
Well, especially with Roland, it was, Roland had one of those like real fatherly spirits. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
He was looking to, and this is what we have to have. He was looking to raise up that next person he dealt with. From be it Gregory Everett, myself, whoever was willing to come to him straight. And we had disagreements, but he would explain some things to me. I think we had talked earlier when there's a reason why I call it a defection and not a split. And I tell people this: if you read the statement from the Panther 21, it's not a split. What they actually say is that the Black Panther Party was no longer the Vanguard organization, and that they believe that the Weather Underground was the Vanguard organization.
That's right. That's in their statement. That's right.
So when you read that, you realize that's a defection. We have to use the correct words. They defected from the Black Panther Party to the Weather Underground.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, for those who may not be aware of what they would call the split, supposedly in the party, could you explain that for those who really don't know about the Panther history?
There were there were two strains of thought during that time. Black Panther Party's official line, because I mean, think about it. Through 1969 and 70, the Black Panther Party took a lot of heavy losses,
Right.
both in deaths and in imprisonment. Serious strains on, because what the police would do is they just arrest people so you spend money on bail. Okay, all that money gets tied up, and you can't put it in anything else.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so in order to survive, you need to develop better tactics. So we did not want to be one of those black militants standing on the corner on a soapbox. So we knew that, and Huey put this out succinctly. It cannot be the Black Panther Party against the oppressor. It has to be the people against the oppressor.
Right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were elements within the party that wanted to become like a little terrorist organization, and it's like, you know, just us against them. Right. But and stepping beyond where the community was. The overall Black community wasn't supporting that. You know, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. Look what happened to the Black Liberation Army.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What Huey and the Central Committee believed at that time was that we have to use the survival programs as an organizing tool.
Right.
So that it's not the Black Panther Party against the police or whatever, but it's the community unified and organized.
Right.
Okay. So that's why when I was saying we'd do a breakfast program, a successful breakfast program was not one where the Black Panther Party's program. Right. It was when the community eventually takes it over.
That's right. Yeah.
When those mothers and everybody realizes that in unity, by working all together, I don't have to worry about just feeding my children. If we all work together, we can feed all of our children.
So the party basically was saying, here's observation, now participation of the people, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, as you said, that's how people learn.
That's right.
Okay. That's how we get them. That's how we get the people out there. They see what the party is really about. Not the propaganda. They see because of our actions. And it's something they can relate to and participate in. And more importantly, if they're participating in community programs like that, they're getting to know their neighbors.
Right, exactly.
You're feeding your neighbors' kids, and your neighbors are feeding your kids. So when something happens at school, you're coming up, you guys are all coming together.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's right.
So then you got these conscious, organized people already showing up at the school board meeting.
Okay.
Maybe they take over the school board.
Wow.
Put in candidates that are meaningful to the community. Because now they know each other. Now they see they have common cause. Wow. Based on a breakfast program.
Right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So the same thing with the medical clinic. You know, raise the contradiction to turn around and say, well, wait a minute. If a bunch of damn teenagers can open up a medical clinic.
Exactly.
what's going on with the county and the federal government?
Right. And you're aware we had a medical clinic out of our office on Martin Luther King, right? We had a free healthcare clinic that we had 2 doctors used to come twice a week. Yes. Yeah. So important to relate to the people.
Yeah. And then of course on Central Avenue, the first cadre had organized one, and it ran until late '72. Wow. Okay. Wow. That was Norma Moore. Okay. Norma Infume now.
Okay. But, all right.
They had put that together. And that matter of fact, the medical clinic that was developed by the Seattle chapter. Okay. The Dixon brothers up there. Right. That Sidney Miller medical clinic still exists.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. And it's interesting you say that, because Community Services Unlimited, which of course you're part of the Southern California chapter, along with the Panther Vanguard for myself, those 2 organizations dissolved, but Community Service Unlimited continues to serve the people of Los Angeles.
Yeah,
they both were. That was the nonprofit organization for both organizations we had.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always a legacy. See, there's a legacy.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So one of the things that you had mentioned, Bunchy, when he was in Los Angeles. We had a chance to talk a bunch. He called me, left you a couple of messages. Anyway, one of the things we were talking about, I talked to about this also with Henry Wallace down in San Diego. Need to give Dale a call.
Oh, okay, all right.
Anyway,
I know Henry too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and Henry's doing food distribution now.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. I mean, he does that on a continuous basis.
Right.
All right. So, like I said, there's a legacy, and you see it now. But what we're talking about is countering this false doctrine around critical race theory. Okay, because they're using that straw man. The right wing never did want us to have Black studies.
Right.
They prefer the American lie to the American truth.
Okay. All right.
Because the truth stirs up contradictions.
Right.
Okay. You know, the second, how should I say, the largest internal battle since the Civil War took place over Union issues. The Battle of Blair Mountain.
Okay. Right.
So these were white workers for the most part. But most people don't know that story.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. You know, you got
labor.
Governor.
Right.
Yeah, you got Senator Manchin, you know, he representing all these coal companies. Well, let's talk about how the coal union, you know, a coal workers union, coal miners union came about, and what that struggle was about. And you're gonna have to understand Blair Mountain.
Okay. Wow.
And how ruthless those owners of those coal mines were.
Wow. Wow.
And so you look at that, and you see the same thing with Mother Jones and when Rockefeller moved against those strikers in Colorado. So they don't want to tell those types of history either, because that's like, because they say, see, they can look at our history and say, oh, poor Black people, I'm not Black. They say, but wait a minute. Oh, look, the Union movement. Oh my goodness, those are white people.
Right. And you know, and you saying that makes me think of the book cover with Paul Robeson, who is one of the great labor activists, you know, along with other things, many other things he's done. Why was it important to put someone like Paul Robeson, who at one time was so vilified, you know, brought up to the, I guess, the McCarthy era commission, and he eloquently defended himself? Why was it important to put him and the people that you have listed on the book, especially Paul Robeson?
Yeah, well, Paul Robeson is on there, and let's see if I got
Tom Bradley,
Tom Bradley in there, basically to show, Paul Robeson was, even though he was vilified nationally by, especially by the State Department,
right?
He was loved in the Black community, because he told the truth.
Yeah, he was loved around the world. Yeah.
think about what was going on at that time. In order to counter, thank you, I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
In order to counter, the American State Department was trying to counter what the Soviet Union and Chinese and everybody was saying about Jim Crow, and about what was going on with Black people, especially Emmett Till, the Central High School 9. They were looking at the Scottsboro boys.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
These went around the world. Okay. So in order to try to counter that, they would send jazz artists, singers, Black jazz artists and singers to different parts of the world, Black celebrities, to talk America up.
Okay.
One of those being the Viper himself, Louis Armstrong.
Wow. I remember
Louis Armstrong, though, he said he saw what was going on in Little Rock, and he told Eisenhower, if you don't do something about helping those kids, I might have a different tune to say.
Wow. Okay. All right.
See, unfortunately, in our youth, we get stupid in our youth. In our arrogance, we leap over the people before us. And see, when I was coming up, Louis Armstrong had this Tom jacket, because he smiled and do all that, and there were a lot of people in the Black left just hated that.
Right.
But Louis Armstrong was so ahead of his time, and he was very conscious.
Okay.
He knew what time it was. Okay.
Mhm.
It was just that in our arrogance, we looked back because he didn't look like the hero we wanted him to look like.
I got you. Okay.
He was just who he was, but he was very conscious and was not going to disrespect himself or the community.
Okay. All right.
And
Wow.
it was him. It was Louis Armstrong that jumped on Eisenhower.
Mm.
He said, "You have me out here as an ambassador, and look what you're doing to Black children here in Arkansas. And you're not going to do nothing about it."
Wow. Wow.
Okay, because
That's right.
Eisenhower wasn't really interested in helping kids.
Okay.
All right, and you had that Dizzy Gillespie. Everybody they would send out
Okay.
to counter Paul Robeson.
Mm.
Because Paul Robeson went and told the truth.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
He
Yes.
sang everything. He sang protest songs, but he told, and this is my personal belief, just based on my research.
Okay.
There is a program. Some of us out here have heard about MK Ultra,
Okay.
which was a CIA program developed in the 1950s to come up with different drugs and ways to alter human behavior.
Mm.
There was a 60 Minutes program, came on 60 Minutes, it was years ago, where they had this Black soldier who had been stationed in Germany during the time of the Berlin Wall and everything. This is in 1961.
Okay.
And unbeknownst to him, he was kidnapped by what he thought were like Russians or Soviet agents and put into a basement and interrogated, okay, after being drugged. Well, it turned out that it wasn't Eastern Bloc nations or the East Germans or the Russians. It was the Americans.
Wow.
Captured their own soldier. And they fed him LSD to see how he would react.
Wow. Wow.
And he was, I think they held him for a couple of weeks and interrogated him to see what he would say or whatever, how he would, and it blew his mind. I mean, can you imagine somebody just puts a sack over your head and then you're down, you're in some basement and you're tripping off of acid and people are hollering at you or doing whatever, you know? So there, like I said, there's a 60 Minutes thing that they did on him.
Okay.
If you listened to the symptoms that Paul Robeson's son talks about his father, it sounds like a bad acid trip. Wow.
Wow. And we're talking about the greatest Renaissance man of the 20th century.
Exactly.
Yes.
But remember what happens. The sin that he committed against the United States was that he went around the world telling the truth.
That's right.
So they were trying to stop him. They took his passport. They did everything they could. Now all of a sudden he's suffering from anxiety attacks, hallucinations.
He's a recluse. Yeah, he becomes a recluse.
Because he can't travel anymore.
Yeah.
He never renounced his politics. Okay. But he's having these terrible delusions and hallucinations and anxiety.
Right.
And his son actually says, it's as if my father's been drugged.
Wow. Wow. Man.
Now, you know who I believe the second person who was a victim of MK Ultra?
Huey P. Newton.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know where you're going. I know exactly where you're going. Yes.
People forget. In October 68, Huey was shot in the stomach. That shit hurts.
That's right.
Okay. So he was self-medicating because, like I said, it hurts. I think he actually had corrective surgery, like in after he came back from Cuba, like in 78 or 79.
Okay.
So that means brother was in pain. And what do we do when we self-medicate?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And you just need somebody to say, here, self-medicate with this.
Wow. Wow.
Because what they were able to do, see, they knew they couldn't destroy the Black Panther Party by just keep killing us and putting us in jail because they were creating martyrs.
Okay. That's right.
Remember what COINTELPRO is. COINTELPRO's motto is what? Disrupt, discredit, and destroy.
That's right. Yeah.
What better way to do that than with crack cocaine?
Oh, that's right. And I always tell people that crack cocaine, especially when it came to South Central, it was like a replay of the Boxer Rebellion or Opium Wars. Same thing. This is not something new to denigrate a people.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. The equivalent, like you said, is the Boxer Rebellion, the Opium Wars.
Yeah.
Because they knew exactly what they were doing by bringing, because the British were mad. They were saying the Chinese got us hooked on tea.
That's true. That's true.
So we're going to send them opium.
Wow.
But you're right. You look at it. Look, it was Ronald Reagan's foreign policy in South America that led to the crack cocaine epidemic.
That's right.
His when he could no longer fund the Contras with congressional money, they decided to do alternative means. Okay. Wow. Now, I did an interview. I interviewed for the Compton 125 Historical Society, and it's probably still on their website. It's on their Facebook page. Okay. There was an interview that I did with Don John Baker, who was president of the Compton Police Officers Association. At the time when the Compton Police Officers Association was trying to undermine the first Black mayor and the first Black police chief. Okay. Right. One of the things that when we talk about Compton got, we had the first Black mayor, we had the administration, we had the city council was majority Black, and school board and all that. Right. But most of the department heads were still white. Right. They were not very happy with the changes. Right. And one of those being the Compton Police Officers Association. Okay. So as I'm interviewing him, I asked him a couple of questions because there's always been two persistent myths in Compton. One was that on Alameda, that there was train carloads of weapons that were just left open. People just to grab in the 1980s. Okay. And do that in the 60s or 70s. But in the 80s, people didn't know what to do with them except shoot at each other. Right. Okay. And I asked if that was true, because I figured if anybody's gonna know about it, it's gonna be the Compton police. And you let me know that actually did happen on more than one occasion. So somebody was bringing in train carload of weapons, parking it in Compton, opening up the car and leaving it there for people just to grab it. Wow. And see, here's the thing. The exact same thing was reported in Chicago a year or two ago.
Coordinated.
They had pictures. They were saying, look at all these guns. Right. And they were out there by the train track. So how'd they show up?
Yeah. Then drugs and liquor stores as well. Right on every.
So somebody's bringing in guns. These guns just didn't fall out the air. Somebody thought about doing this. Right. So Compton Police, in that interview, they verify that. Then I asked him another question, because he was always talking about how John Baker was talking about how, well, look, I grew up in Compton. I lived on 135th Street in Central, and so I knew a lot of the players in the drug world. I said, well, how come you didn't ever go after the big guys? And he straight told us, because they were, the federal government blocked us. DEA blocked. That's right. We know Turtle Johnson, Chico Brown, and Freeway Rick Ross. That they had a pipeline. Oh, yes. Directly to the Contras. That's right. Okay. And the CIA had the DEA look the other way so that they could make their money, so they could buy their arms to oppose the Nicaraguan government. Wow. But we were the collateral.
That's right. Wow.
Civilian casualties, our communities, our families, eventually, of course, across the United States. But I also point this out. Before the crack epidemic, say by 1978, just about every major figure in the Black liberation struggle had an issue with cocaine. I'm talking about from Julian Bond to Marion Barry to Huey Newton.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that is obviously not by accident. People forget who Marion Barry was.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
He was
Civil rights icon. I mean, a
yeah,
student civil rights icon. Yeah.
yeah. He brought SNCC down there to when they made up their mind, they said, well, okay, we're gonna organize and take municipal power over here in Atlanta.
Mhm.
DC didn't have municipal power when Marion Barry got there because they didn't have a municipal government until they helped organize it and demanded it.
Mm.
Congress ran everything in DC.
Wow.
Okay, it was those black folks that said, no, we need to have some representation. At least they got that. They still don't have congressional or federal, legislative representation.
Okay.
Okay, but they did get some municipal representation, and that had a lot to do with Marion Barry.
Okay.
Okay, but then, well, how do we remember him now? Cocaine addict.
Right. Right.
How do a lot of people remember Huey Newton?
Mhm.
Okay,
Right. Right.
they don't know anything of his writings or his philosophy in organizing.
Right.
So when I see these so-called Panther formations popping up, and all they can relate to is 0.7,
right,
I know you ain't read no Huey Newton.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've read the newspaper. You've read the sensationalism.
Right.
Okay. So it's more than people talk about, and there's actually the documentary Bastards of the Party.
Mm-hmm.
When the party was attacked, when you saw like the Crips came up in LA,
Mm-hmm.
they liked the swagger of the Black Panther Party.
Right. Right.
They just were not aware of the politics behind the Black Panther Party.
Right.
So the way they get used, because the police always wanted to categorize Black Panther Party as gangsters anyway.
Right.
So then here you have this group that pops up. And that's like, to them, a dream comes true, because they, it's like, ooh, you're gangsters.
Right.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
We can't use this community organization, Black Panther Party, because they're not gangsters. So we'll create a version. And that's what you saw.
Right.
That filled that vacuum.
Yeah. And that's without the political education, again, these, during the Panther era, and the new Black Panther, I mean, not the new Black Panther, but I'm saying the Black Panther Party in the 60s, 70s, even Panther Vanguard, political education. The paper was the extended political education tool that went around the world to educate people. And that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you look at these so-called, they don't have any of that. They just show up for a rally.
Right.
We used to have a name for those Panthers. Remember?
What's that?
Rally Panthers.
Oh, okay.
They didn't do the work. They just got dressed up and showed up at a rally.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So now the modern version of that is I get to get my gun and walk around and look real tough.
Right.
Okay. But how am I affecting the community?
Well, I remember talking to Sharif one time, and I brought up this thing about the hair and nail shop revolutionaries. I think even Daruba once said it's like an emporium of the superficial, external beauty, but it's no internal substance.
Exactly. There's no organizing being done on a consistent level, and that's why when I was talking to Bunchy and Henry and some other people about dealing with the CRT thing, by going to our 0.5, okay. All right, because we're not interested in 0.7 right now. Of course, we're always interested in self-defense.
Right.
But here we need to have an answer to a question that's being put on us.
Right.
All right. And it's the erasure of our history.
Right. Right.
So what we would do is set up liberation schools under 0.5, because that's what we did before. We just could do a modern version of it.
Right.
Okay, these little Panther formations you get, or you have former Panthers who work with Black Lives Matter, but you want to hook the youth into it and say, this is what we're doing. This is what we can do to counter this, because we need to do it, because if we don't educate the youth coming up, I'm talking about the 10, 11-year-olds.
Right.
Okay, and younger. If we don't teach them the correct history, okay, we don't have to propagandize or lie. We just come up with a curriculum that we can back. Okay. Because we have all these, Black academics running around here want to do so. Let's put together a Black history curriculum that we could use in different states, okay, that would be relevant to the people. We could even set up a speakers track through the different areas. Set up a curriculum that so you don't have 29 people doing 29 different things. Okay,
Right.
you have the same curriculum.
Okay.
And we set it up. We use academics, and we get a legitimate curriculum that can be taught on an afternoon basis or whatever. We could use libraries, churches, after school programs. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
It's something that we can do without having to run around wave guns at each other.
Okay. Right
But
on.
be very effective.
Okay.
And
Well, I have. Oh, go ahead.
just saying, I'm just calling on anybody that wants to relate to the Black Panther Party of taking this into consideration. We're going to be talking more about this because we need to have an answer to the erasure of our history by the majority culture.
Right on. Okay. All right. And final two questions. What's next for you in terms of projects and things that you have on the coming up in the future?
Keep an eye out. We have something coming out. It's a 6-part series on the history of the city of Compton.
Okay. All right.
Coming out shortly.
Okay.
Andre Young, Dr. Dre, is the executive producer.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Is the director, and it's a 6-part history covering the arc of the city of Compton from the Native American encampments to the Dominguez family Spanish land grant, all the way up to now.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out, and so to keep an eye on that. I'm completing work on. Hopefully, I have it finished by the end of the year. I'm doing a book on the history of Watts Willowbrook, and that'll be up. Of course, it's to complement the history I have on the city of Compton. After I finish that, I'll be doing an update on the city of Compton book. And this May, we're doing a project with the Bridget Biddy Mason Foundation.
Okay.
This will be a what do you call those things? Town hall.
Okay. All right.
We have Karen Bass, Karen Price, and some other people who will be talking about the crisis in our community around foster care.
Okay. All right.
Okay, because we're in Los Angeles, we're about 14% of the population, but we're like 49 or 50% of foster care.
Okay. Wow.
I have to figure out why, because you're dealing with family situations.
Right.
So there'll be people who will be addressing that. That's going to be May 15th.
Okay.
At 2:00, and we're going to be at the Biddy Mason Foundation.
Okay.
So those who are interested, just keep an eye out. I'll shoot you a link also, because we're going to be doing. It won't only just be live. We're going to also do it over. It's going to be on some Facebook pages.
Okay. And, YouTube as well.
I'll let you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you.
Okay.
So we have some of those things going, and like I said, I have an article out. If you go to my latest article, is called "When Compton Was the Citadel of Black Political Power."
Okay.
And it's at the kcet.com website. That's the local public broadcasting station in Los Angeles, Channel 28. Okay. kcet.com. When Compton Was the Citadel of Black Political Power by Robert Lee Johnson.
Okay. All right. And how can people reach out to you, for contact and follow you on social media?
Well, I do have a Facebook page, Robert Lee Johnson. So, go to that. You can always reach me through the Compton 125 Historical Society. Those are 2 ways to reach me. And of course, through you.
Oh, okay, right on. I'll definitely share all the information, which I've already have.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Well, it's been a wonderful day. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but it's been a dream come true for me, because I follow 2 people in the journalism field as a Black man and as a Black man of conscience, and that was Earl O'Farrell Hutchinson and Robert Lee Johnson. I would always see, you know, be it Watch Times, the Sentinel, LA Times, and I really appreciate, you know, you and what you've done in terms of history and literary excellence. So I want to thank you.
Well, I'm gonna show you one thing since you.
Okay.
Just in case, because a lot of people don't recognize me now. But hold on, just a second.
Okay, sure. All right.
Showed this one to you before.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah,
I need that as part of the photo exhibit that I hope to bring to Los Angeles October 2023.
This was actually taken. This was a surveillance picture.
Okay. Oh, wow. Wow.
So when I was doing some research and you know, I have my papers from LAPD and all that,
Right.
and I have this picture and a couple other ones that I'll share with you.
Okay.
Of that was me when I was in the party.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'll share some of those pictures with you.
Okay, and thank you so much again for speaking with me today. And I want you to hold on. I'm gonna stop the recording, but hold on, and I just want to say a brief goodbye to you and let you know about some other things.
Oh, no problem. I'll be right here.
Okay.
Power to the people.
All power to the people.